previous chapter known as Sankhya Yoga has 72 verses. Actually, it follows Arjuna's series of questions in Arjuna Vishada Yoga. So, actually, the idea of Lord Krishna in giving so much of a knowledge and information in Sankhya Yoga was to almost wake up Arjuna. Is almost wake up because it is the ignorance, the ajnana, the delusion which Arjuna had was like a sort of a darkness, a deep sleep. He wanted to wake him up. So for that purpose, Krishna gives uh, Sankhya Yoga, the entire knowledge. It comprises everything. It's a comprehensive view, comprehensive picture of entire Bhagavad Gita. Karma Yoga, Gnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, all elements of all these chapters are present in Sankhya Yoga. Sankhya Yoga is extremely good, but at the same time, it is also a bit highly concentrated. Maybe it will look almost like an overdose of philosophy given to a person who may not be in a position to comprehend and appreciate all these aspects. So that is you can see from the first two verses of this chapter, Karma Yoga, through Arjuna's questions, we get that sort of a impression. Not surprising, because Arjuna is representing all of us. Philosophy, high philosophy, or actually what we call Vedanta, Advaita Gnana, it is not easy to absorb, easy to comprehend. So actually what now follows is from chapter 3 to chapter 18 is elaboration of the basic concepts which have been given in a sort of a concentrated dose in chapter 2. So this is sort of a background which I am giving you. Based on that, we'll proceed. There is no repetition as such, but it is elaboration of various aspects already covered in chapter 2. Again, chapter 18 will be like almost a summing up of all these elements which are appearing in this first 17 chapters. So we'll proceed now with the first of this series, that is chapter 3, called Karma Yoga. We'll start with Arjuna's questions. So as usual, maybe Katyani madam can help me by reciting.
Thank you, Gopinath.
Yes, madam. This is called Karma Yoga. Karma is actually action. Karma Yoga is like a path of action. And in this also, the first 10 verses, more especially first three verses, are like an introduction to the path of action. Starts with Arjuna's queries. Jayasi chet karmanasते
ध्यायसि चेत् कर्मणस्ते
mata buddhi janardhana.
मता बुद्धिः जनार्दन।
Jayasi chet कर्मणः ते
ध्यायसि चेत् कर्मणस्ते
mata buddhi janardhana.
मता बुद्धिः जनार्दन।
Tat kim कर्मणि घोरे.
तत् किं कर्मणि घोरे
Actually, mom also should along with this. Tat kim karmani ghore mam
तत् किं कर्मणि घोरे मां
niyojayasi keshava.
नियोजयसि केशव।
Now reading together. Jayasi chet karmanaste
ध्यायसि चेत् कर्मणस्ते
mata buddhirjanardhana
मता बुद्धिर्जनार्दन
tat kim karmani ghore mam
तत् किं कर्मणि घोरे मां
niyojayasi keshava.
नियोजयसि केशव.
Janardhana. Actually, Arjuna is addressing Krishna as Janardhana and Keshava. These we know are the very famous Keshava Namas. O Janardhana, O Keshava. Arjuna is asking Krishna, if you consider knowledge to be superior to action, that is jnana or renunciation as superior to action, then why do you engage me in this terrible action? Why are you suggesting to me to engage in terrible action? Now, Krishna is talking of high philosophy. Krishna is talking of dharma, adharma, and all those things. At the same time, Krishna is encouraging Arjuna to fight the battle. To fighting the battle, Arjuna is considering to be a sort of a terrible action. Ghore karma, ghora, terrible action. That is fighting and killing of kinsmen and respected elders. Actually, this is one sort of a allegation made against Bhagavad Gita that Krishna is encouraging violence. Krishna is encouraging people to fight. So that allegation is made without understanding the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita. Now, Krishna also has said in the earlier verses that if you don't if you don't indulge in action, then a lot of benefits are there, especially Sthita Prajna. In a Sthita Prajna is one person who is keeping himself away from society, not acting much. So Arjuna is thinking of those aspects, and then Arjuna is not able to distinguish between action and actually knowledge actually is called inaction. Bhagavad Gita has very, very typical words. Action, karma, akarma, vikarma. These words will be used again and again. So we have to understand these things. Gradually, this will be explained more and more. So that we'll see when the stage comes. But in the very beginning, now Arjuna's doubts are why you are encouraging me to fight. Now, this gradually we'll understand when Krishna gives an answer to this. Right now, let us understand that there is scope for confusion. There is scope for misunderstanding. That much we'll understand in Arjuna's questions. Jayasi chet karmanaste
जायसि चेत् कर्मणस्ते
mata buddhirjanardhana
मता बुद्धिर्जनार्दन
tat kim karmani ghore mam
तत् किं कर्मणि घोरे मां
niyojayasi keshava.
नियोजयसि केशव.
Now, next he's asking, Vyamisrena iva vakyena
व्यामिश्रेण इव वाक्येन
buddhim mohayasi iva me
बुद्धिं मोहयसि इव मे
tat ekam vada nishchitya
तत् एकं वद निश्चित्य
ena sreyaha aham apnuyam.
येन श्रेयः अहम् आप्नुयाम्.
Vyamisreneva vakyena
व्यामिश्रेणेव वाक्येन
buddhim mohayasi iva me
बुद्धिं मोहयसीव मे
tadekam vada nishchitya
तदेकं वद निश्चित्य
ena श्रेयोहमाप्नुयाम.
येन श्रेयोऽहमाप्नुयाम्.
Again, here again, you will understand there are almost 3 sentences. Arjuna is still, he is getting confused. What exactly Krishna is telling him? Krishna is telling him to act or not to act. Which is better? So Krishna seems to be telling both. So Arjuna says, you are confusing me, or I am getting confused because of your perplexed speech. So he's requesting Krishna, please tell me with certainty one path. Don't tell me two and confuse me. Tell me one by which I can attain the highest. Highest means moksha or a parampada or liberation. But here you have to see very interestingly, they use the word iva twice. Vyamisrena vakyena. He didn't say that. Vyamisrena iva vakyena. Similarly, mohayasi me. No, he's telling mohayasi iva me. Because Arjuna has so much of respect and trust in Lord Krishna. He knows Krishna will never mislead him. Krishna will never confuse him. So he is using this word iva, iva. Iva means almost, as if. That is what iva means, with an apparently. He didn't simply say vyamisrena vakyena means perplexing speech, confusing speech. He didn't say that. Iva vyamisrena vakyena means with an apparently, seemingly, for appearance sake. It looks confusing to me. It may not be perplexing. It appears perplexing to me. He's telling out of so much of humility. Similarly, when he says, you confuse my understanding, even that he says, Iva, it appears, I get an impression that you are confusing my understanding. So with this sort of this ideal attitude of a real Shishya, a student should have full faith in the teacher. He should never attribute motives to the teacher, to the Guru, assume that Guru will never do anything which is not useful to him. So still your doubts are there, you can please ask. Doubts can be asked in a very, very polite manner without making any sort of even oblique reflection on the teacher. So then he is telling, tell me ekam. He wants only one. Don't tell me two things. Tell me one. Tell me tat ekam. Tell me that one particular method, that one particular advice. That too, nischitya, with clear clarity. Don't tell me this, yes, but no, no. You say do this, that's all. Don't put any element of a ifs and buts. So please tell me that one with certainty. So his Arjuna's objective is, by that method, he would like to attain the highest. So this is what Arjuna is telling here. Arjuna actually is confused as to whether he should fight the disastrous war or withdraw from battle, become a ascetic, and pursue pure knowledge. He says, I would like to go to the forest and do tapasya. Should I do that? Or should I fight this war, which is fully out violence and lot of people will be killed? So Krishna, instead of answering him directly, he has talked of an indestructibility of the Atman. Verses 11 to 30 of chapter 2, Sankhya Yoga, it talks of what is Atma. In Atma can never be destroyed, etc. he says. And then he also highlights importance of obligatory duties. So Arjuna was getting confused. But since he has highest faith in Krishna, he cannot even imagine that Krishna will ever mislead him. So he is using the term Iva, not once, but twice. He says, maybe I am getting that impression. He does not blame the teacher, but doubt his own ability to understand. So this is the ideal attitude of a good student. He says, I am getting confused with your apparently perplexing speech. He pleads for one clear, single, perfect solution. This is a paradox in life. In a paradox in life is, for any problem, there is no sort of a one single perfect solution. It never appears. There are multiple solutions are there, multiple possibilities are there in different situations for different individuals. Different solutions will be applicable. So this one fundamental thing we have to understand, not only Bhagavad Gita, but everywhere. There are so many ways of doing a thing, right thing. But each method is not applicable to everybody. It differs from person to person, maybe place to place. We have to use our common sense. So after these questions are there, now Krishna is giving an answer. Again, Krishna will not give an answer directly to Arjuna's questions. Answers will come, but one has to be patient. To gradually get the answer. Sri Bhagavanuvacha.
Sri Bhagavanuvacha.
Actually, the two words. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha
Sri Bhagavan Uvacha.
means this is Lord statement. So this is the beauty of Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita, everywhere what is said is Bhagavan Uvacha. It is not Krishna also. It is not Krishna as an individual. It is a Supreme Paramatma who is speaking through the medium of a person, a being called Krishna. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha.
Sri Bhagavanuvacha.
Loke asmin vividha nishta.
Loke asmin vividha nishta.
Pura prokta maya anagha.
Pura prokta maya anagha.
Anagha means a sinless one. It is one way to refer to Arjuna. Krishna is calling him, oh my dear sinless one. Loke asmin vividha nishta.
Loke asmin vividha nishta.
Pura prokta maya anagha.
Pura prokta maya anagha.
Jnana yogena sankhyanam.
Jnana yogena sankhyanam.
Karma yogena yoginam.
Karma yogena yoginam.
Lokesmin vividha nishta.
Lokesmin vividha nishta.
Pura prokta maya nagha.
Pura prokta maya nagha.
Jnana yogena sankhyanam.
Jnana yogena sankhyanam.
Karma yogena yoginam.
Karma yogena yoginam.
You can see this is Krishna's typical way of answering. Arjuna said, please tell me one path. Please tell me that one method only. Arjuna asked, show me one method. But Krishna says, no. He's telling, yeah, there is no one single path. There are two paths are there. Two methods are there. But both are not for you. So in this world, there are two paths. One path of knowledge, other is path of action. Path of knowledge is for Sankhyas, what you call introverted persons, contemplative persons who already have achieved a particular level of wisdom. They are called Sankhyas. That's why the previous chapter is called Sankhya Yoga, the path of knowledge for the Sankhyas. The second path is path of action for the persons who are very, very active person, but who works for the society, not only for self-interest. He can be called a yogi. One of the terms used. That is what Krishna says. Sankhyanam Jnana Yogena. Karma Yogena Yoginam. So two methods are there. That is what Krishna is telling. Oh, Arjuna, hey Anagha, in this world, Maya Pura Prokta. What he's trying to say is, I'm not telling you the first time. I've already told you earlier also. As I said earlier, there is a twofold path. There are two methods. The path of knowledge for the Sankhyas, that is the contemplative persons. Karma Yoga, path of action for the yogis, for the active. So Krishna is giving a hint to Arjuna that as far as you are concerned, path of action is more appropriate for you, more suitable for you. Now we can see what these two paths are. Small table is available here. I made out here. Jnana Yoga and Karma Yoga. There are two methods. Now, Jnana Yoga is knowledge itself is yoga. Here, karma itself is yoga. So action is required for a karma yogi it may not be required for a Jnana Yogi, because for him, knowledge itself is yoga. So Jnana Yoga is path of knowledge, Karma Yoga is path of action. Jnana Yoga is for the Sankhyas or the Jnanis, Karma Yoga is for the yogis, the active persons. Now, Sankhyas are the contemplative persons. Active persons are, we can say, average individuals. We all come under the active persons. Sannyasa is not for us. We cannot go to do sannyasa at all. It is not for us. Now, here there is a way of talking. Now, a Jnana Yoga person has reached a high level of knowledge. He is able to say, Aham Brahma Asmi. Aham Brahma Asmi. I am Brahman. He is able to declare boldly because he has identified himself totally with the Supreme Brahman. This is not possible for a Karma Yogi, an action person. He does not say. It is enough if you say, Na Aham Karta, Harihi Karta. I am not the doer. Doer is Lord. Doer is Krishna, Supreme Being, Hari. I am only an instrument. An instrument in this hand. That's all. It's enough if I can say that. Now, a Jnana Yogi says, Brahmani eva avasthitanam. I exist in Brahman alone. This I cannot say. An active person, an average person cannot say that. So active person says, I serve like the servant of Ishvara. Ishvara, Bhrutyuvat. Bhrutyu is a servant. Ishvaraha Bhrutyuvat aham karomi. I will serve like a servant of the God. But destination of both is same. Destination of a Jnana Yogi is Brahman or a moksha. Destination of a Karma Yogi is also Brahman or a moksha. So there are two paths. By following the Karma Yoga, any person can reach Brahman. But for a Jnana Yogi, it is more difficult. That's what Krishna will tell in later chapters. The two paths have been enunciated in this world only because this world is called a Karma Bhumi. Action can take place only here. Only in this world. It is not possible that I'll go to Swarga, heaven, and then try for a moksha. Moksha is not possible for people living in heaven because it is a Bhoga Bhumi. It is not possible in Naraka because Naraka you are suffering. You are suffering so much that you cannot think of anything better. So only in a Karma Bhumi is the earth where we are living. This is the best place for striving for liberation. Nishtha. Nishtha means a spiritual path. It denotes a state of determination, single-minded focus in any undertaking. So Nishtha can be of any type. It can be Dhyana Nishtha, Tapo Nishtha, Vrata Nishtha, Brahma Nishtha, Karma Nishtha. Whatever you are doing, if you do with determination, it is called good Nishtha. The paths may be different, but the ultimate destination is the same, moksha or liberation. Nothing is superior or inferior. Both are equally good. Both may not be possible for everybody. We have to choose what suits us and accordingly proceed. So they are more like two stages in the same path. Because normally when we do Karma Yoga, gradually we can become fit for following the path of Jnana Yoga. The path of knowledge is not feasible, applicable for everyone. But Karma Yoga is more suitable for people like us. So this is the introductory part which Lord Krishna tells to Arjuna. Let's continue with two more verses in this only. Now, Krishna is also telling to Arjuna that you cannot give up karma. You cannot simply run away from battle. You are not fit for sannyasa. If you go there, tum banoge na ghar ka na ghat ka. You can neither do this nor do that. It's not possible. So that's what Krishna alerts him. Na karmanam anarambhat.
न कर्मणाम् अनारम्भात्
Naishkarmyam Purushaha Ashnute.
Naishkarmyam Purushaha Ashvrute.
Nacha Sanyasanat Eva
Na cha sanyasanat eva
Siddhim Samadhigacchati.
siddhyam samadhigacchati.
Na karmana manarambhat
Na karmana manarambhat
Naishkarmyam Purushosnute.
naishkarmyam purushosnute.
Nacha Sanyasanat Eva
Na cha sanyasanadeva
Siddhim Samadhigacchati.
siddhim samadhigacchati.
A saint, a sadhu, you may see he is sitting quietly, not doing anything. That is what we feel. But if we merely imitate him and we also sit quietly doing nothing, nothing is going to happen. This experience you will get when you go to any place. You go to Ramana Ashrama or maybe even a Ramakrishna Mutt or any ashrama, you'll find lot of people are sitting quietly in a corner doing nothing, apparently doing nothing. But if you also go and quietly sit there and do nothing, you get only bored. You keep on looking at here and there what you are doing. The fundamental difference is they are not doing nothing. They are doing great things. They are really contemplating on the Supreme. Maybe their eyes are open or eyes are closed. They are sitting still, but they are in a different world. So that is what we understand. Actionlessness. Naishkarmyam is a higher state. Naishkarmyam is what is called, simple English translation is actionlessness state. So Krishna tells merely by not doing action, merely by abstaining from action, you don't reach the stage of actionlessness. It is a very high state of a perfection. It is not possible merely by sannyasa. What do you think sannyasa means? Not doing anything. Not doing anything is not sannyasa. So that is what it is explained in great detail. A man does not obtain actionlessness merely by abstaining from action, and he does not gain perfection, sannyasana, merely by renunciation, merely by trying to run away from society, not discharging your duties. You don't become a real sannyasi. Of course, whenever Purusha does not mean man or woman separately. Purusha actually means a person, a being. For convenience sake, we write a man, he, etc. So let us understand this. Purusha means a person. Naishkarmyam is one of the most misunderstood terms of Bhagavad Gita. So we have to understand the apparent contradiction in this verse. We should appreciate what is called a chronology of action. How action proceeds, what action is. Now you can see here in the line below, 5th or 6th line, we have what are known as vasanas. Vasanas are inherent tendency, are aptitude, internal urge which is there, which we inherit right from birth. Right from birth, we have an inherent tendency. So this inherent tendency will lead to thoughts. Thoughts will lead to desires. Desires will lead to actions. And action will also create more vasanas or strengthen the existing vasanas. So it is sort of a cycle. Vasanas, thought, desires, actions, vasanas, again thought, desires, action. So this is a chronology of actions. So if we want to reach a state of actionlessness, you have to become you have to attain desirelessness, thoughtlessness, vasana-lessness. So this is what we should attain. Unless we are able to have a control over desires or a thoughts, you cannot control actions. Actually, definition of action in Sanskrit, in scriptures is very wide. Action is not what we do only with the body, what I do with the mind, what I do with the mouth. So actually, in a way, thoughts, words, actions, all together they come under the category of actions. So it's very, very comprehensive way we have to understand this. And understanding this, then we understand, then we follow that it is we continuously right from birth till death, we are doing action. Breathing is an action. Eating is an action. Drinking water is an action. Thinking of attending this class is an action. So you can never be in a state where I cannot do action. So this is what Krishna tells. Nahi kaschit kshanam api.
nahi kaschit kshanam api
Kaschit means none. None even for a moment. Jatu tishtati akarma krut.
jatu tishtati akarmakrut.
That means nobody even for a moment can remain without doing action. It is not possible. Because thoughts are actions. Breathing is an action. Inhaling is action. Exhaling is an action. So your action is bound to happen as long as we're alive. Action will be there. Nahi kaschit kshanam api
nahi kaschit kshanam api
jatu tishtati akarma krut
jatu tishtati akarmakrut
karyate hi avashah karma
karyate hi avashah karma
sarvah prakriti jaihi gunaihi.
sarvah prakriti jaihi gunaihi.
All these gunas are born in nature. By nature, we do all these actions is inevitable. Nahi kaschit kshanamapi
nahi kaschit kshanamapi
jatu tishtatya karma krut
jatu tistatya karmakrut
karyate hyavashah karma
karyate hyavashah karma
sarvah prakriti jair gunaihi.
sarvah prakriti gunaihi.
Nahi kaschit tishtati akarma krut kshanam api. Very categorical statement coming from Lord Krishna. None can ever remain inactive even for a moment. We think we are physically not moving, but mind is working. Thoughts are there. Na kaschit tishtati jatu akarmakut kshanam api. It further says, all are made to act helplessly. Karyate karma avashaha. Avashaha. Vasha means control. Avashaha means be without control. Helplessly indeed. Why this is happening? Because prakriti jaihi gunaihi. It's the inherent natural tendency born of eyes or tendency of the eye is to see, ears is to hear. Can you prevent your ears from hearing? Can you prevent your nose from smelling? Maybe you can close your eyes from seeing, but you cannot close your nose, you cannot close your ears. So these organs are there for performing their jobs. Similarly, mind is there to think. It is not possible to do. That's why they say when you do a dhyana or a puja, it becomes very difficult to control the thoughts. Thoughts will come. So solution is get better thoughts, get good thoughts, not try to control the thoughts. Thoughts will always come. So this is the Krishna's solution is action will be there. Do proper action. Now vasanas, they drive or give rise to our activities. The types of activities depending upon types of vasanas. These types are known called guna. Guna is only a category. Guna is a category. Three gunas are there. There are three in number. Sattvika, Rajasika, Tamasika. Sattvika denotes serenity, equanimity, and poise. A Sattvika person is generally contemplative. He is devoted to truth. He is detached from the world, worldly actions and excitements. Such a person is focused on the supreme. So these are the general understanding of the term sattva, sattvika, sattva guna. The Rajasika is a state of a passion, desire, agitation. It is focused on acquisition and enjoyment of worldly objects. We are fully lost in the worldly affairs, restless and tense. So basically, it means pursuing desire-ridden activities. Generally, all of us are having Rajasika as a predominant aspect. No person is fully Satvika, Rajasika, or Tamasika. No person is always in a Poklo state. So we always in a combination of these gunas in every person, and even same person, it differs from time to time. Maybe early morning hours are more of Sattvic guna, daytime Rajasika. As evening goes and we become sleepy, etc., Tamasic guna will come. All are required, all are important, all are essential. It's only question of a proportion and at what time we should have which one. Tamasika is a state of a inertia, not doing anything, a laziness, indolence, indifference, indolent, not inclined to any activity. This is what is normally meant by Tamasika. It lacks intellectual conviction to carry out any activity. Every individual has all three types of gunas, only proportion differs. And not only that, it differs from even in same person from time to time. It differs from individual to individual. So this is the typical nature of what we call the gunas. Now I think after 5 verses, I would like to give a break to Katyayani madam. Maybe somebody else can take over.
Thank you.
Ramagaru, మీరు చెప్తారా?
Okay, sir.
Yeah. So we'll continuing now with the 6th verse. Now in these 2 verses, 6 and 7 are sort of a twin verses. They're related verses. Now Krishna explains the concept of a actionlessness or action. What is action? He explains. We have what are known as karmendriyas and the jnanendriyas. Karmendriyas are the organs of what you call organs of action. That is your 5 organs: eyes, ear, nose, skin, tongue. These are the 5 actions. And we also have organs of jnanendriyas. Jnanendriya is more to do with heart, mind, thinking, thought, etc. Karmendriyani samyamya.
Karmendriyani samyamya.
Karma indriyani samyamya.
Karma indriyani samyamya.
Yaha aste manasa smaran.
Yaha aste manasa smaran.
Indriyarthan.
Indriyarthan.
Indriya arthan. Indriyarthan.
Indriyarthan.
Actually, karma should come here. Karmendriyani samyamya.
Karmendriyani samyamya.
Yaha aste manasa smaran indriyarthan.
Yaha aste manasa smaran indriyarthan.
Vimudhatma mithyacharaka sa uchyate.
Vimudatma mityacharah sah uchyate.
Normal way we read is karmendriyani samyamya.
Karmendriyani samyamya.
Yaha aste manasa smaran.
Yaha aste manasa smaran.
Indriyarthan vimudhatma.
Indriyarthan vimudatma.
Mithyacharaka sa uchyate.
Mityacharah sa uchyate.
Okay, now you can see the meaning of this. Yaha saha means one who. Yaha means a person. Samyamya, who restrains the organs of action, but mentally indulgence in the sense objects. That means I'm closing my eyes. There is a beautiful object. So somebody told me, don't keep on looking at that. So ideal example is, suppose there is a diabetic person. He says he has been advised, yeah, don't take sweets. Don't look at these sweets. That man, what he does is he closes his eyes when he goes to a sweet shop. He will close his eyes, but keep on imagining, thinking of the sweet. So he is not doing the principle, he is not following fully. He is merely closing the organs of action, but mentally indulges in the corresponding sense objects. You close your ear, but think of the sound. You close a particular thing. Like, for example, a student is preparing for an examination. The parents advise him, Arya, at least exam period tak to tum picture ke baare mat socho. Don't think of the cricket, don't think of IPL, etc. Focus on your studies. Okay, you switch off the TV. That fellow will sit quietly in a room. He's not watching the TV, but continuously thinking match में क्या हो रहा है. Continuously match में क्या हो रहा है, कौन bowling क्या, कौन batting क्या run rate है. So by that, he is not able to concentrate on his studies. It is useless. It is better that he watches TV for 5 minutes, satisfies himself, comes back voluntarily and study. That is far better than physically restraining a particular organ of action, but nobody has control over the mind. That is what it says. So if a person who's doing like this, like for example, I am sitting in a puja room, I'm not looking at the kitchen. I'm not, but my mind is always focused on what is being prepared in the kitchen. I'm thinking only of that masala dosa which is being prepared by my wife. I'm keep on thinking of that. So there is no use of that. So such a person is called a person of a deluded understanding. A strong word which is used here is called hypocrite. Mithyacharaha. Mithyachara, the hypocrite is a strong word, but that is what it says. Now, thoughts and desires at the mental level, ultimately they manifest through organs of action and perception at the physical level. The thought is at a mental level, action will be at a physical level. So that will inevitably follow. The moment you remove the control, it will follow. The moment the parent goes out, the moment the headmaster leaves the room, the student will run into the ground or run into neighbor's house. You disconnect the cable TV in your house, the child will run when you are not there to the neighbor's house and watch the TV. So this is what happens. One can forcibly control their outer manifestation at a physical level by restraining the organs of what we call perception, that means seeing, hearing, listening, and action, doing, running, walking, etc. You can do that. But a person may still indulge in them inwardly, mentally, even though physically he may not be doing, but mentally he will be doing this. Such is the double life of a so-called religious person. We will find a lot of people wearing saffron clothes, but what they do and what they think are not matching. So Gita describes the person as a Vimudha Atma, a deluded person, or Mithya Acharaha, hypocrite. This is where Gita describes in a blunt way the real truth. Karmendriyani samyamya
कर्मेन्द्रियाणि संयम्य
ya aste manasa smaran
य आस्ते मनसा स्मरन्
indriyarthan vimudhatma
इन्द्रियार्थान् विमूढात्मा
yacharaka sa uchyate.
मिथ्याचारः स उच्यते.
So Gita advises exact opposite of that. It says, Yaha tu indriyani manasa
यः तु इन्द्रियाणि मनसा
niyamya arabhate arjuna
नियम्यः आरभते अर्जुन
karmendriyaihi karmayogam
कर्मेन्द्रियैः कर्मयोगम्
asaktaha sa vishishyate.
असक्तः सः विशिष्यते विशिष्यते.
So what Krishna tells is, two means as a contrast, but a person, but hey Arjuna, but a person restraining the senses of the mind. He says important is you restrain the senses of the mind without attachment, engages his organs of action, he excels. If you do that, that is still better. You may physically do, but you are restraining by your mind. in that case, you don't have any problem like this. Actually, I recollect one small anecdote which was told earlier. One Guruji, one Guru and a Shishya were walking across. When they're walking across, they had to cross a small river. That river had only not much of water, only some very, maybe hardly 1 or 2 feet of water. Then when they reached the bank, they were about to cross, they found a young lady. The young lady was hesitant to cross. So Guruji, what he does is, Guruji goes, when she wants help, Guruji goes very near, maybe almost lifts her, carries her across the river and goes that side. And then the lady goes away on her own way. And Guru and Sishya continue the journey. After half an hour, the Shishya asks, Guruji, you are supposed to be a sannyasi, you are a brahmachari. Was it proper for you to touch a lady and physically lift a lady? Is it okay? Guru says, oh, you are asking about that. I forgot long back. I did not even think of it. I did that and thought of it. So you are still thinking of that particular thing for the last half an hour. So this is what the Guruji said. So what is wrong is you may do something, but you forget and leave it there. The Guru's mind is not on that. Shishya, who was very, very correct, he was maintaining what is called brahmacharya physically, but he was thinking of only of that particular action, that particular incident. He was still thinking of the lady. So mentally he's thinking of the lady, whereas Guruji physically touched the lady, physically lifted her, but his mind was not involved in that particular act. So this is the difference between this difference comes out clearly between what Krishna is trying to tell in the previous verse and this particular verse. He says, "O Arjuna, one who restraining the senses by your mind control, engages his organs of action, but without attachment. He is a true yogi. He excels in karma yoga." Is what says. So a person craving for worldly pleasure is never satisfied. So restraining at the physical level, merely at the physical level, leads to repression and frustration. Such a person exercises control at a physical level, but indulges in the pleasures mentally. So this is nothing but hypocrisy, or what we call self-delusion. So Gita's advice is, it is better to check the indulgence at the mental level, irrespective whether or not the body actually experiences the sense objects. Because desires are produced by mental indulgence, not by mere physical exercises. That is why you find really knowledgeable people, highly educated people, like Swami Vivekananda behaves in a different manner. Their mind is clear, mind is absolutely pure. Actions may be as required by the society, but it does not pollute their mind. It does not constitute any sort of a illegality. There is no confusion. So in all senses, in all sense context, object world, we should direct the mind towards some higher ideal goal. As long as the higher ideal is there, like self-realization, moksha, nirvana, etc., there is no family. So what normally ideally suggested is, we can start with smaller goals. Everybody cannot go to very high level. So instead of thinking only of the individual, we can think of welfare of the family. Then gradually extend it. Your own extended family, brothers, sisters, cousins, etc. Then you can include your neighbors, your community at large, the organization where you are working. You can do that. Next to the country, find the planet Earth itself. This is what our Sanatana Dharma says. Vasudha eva eka kutumbakam. Vasudha eva kutumbakam. So that is the best stage in which we can reach. So I'll give a small break here.